He seemed like the ideal husband, a caring father, a quiet man who would never hurt anyone. His name was Chris Watts. On social media, his life looked perfect. He smiled, he hugged his wife, he played with his beautiful children. But behind that carefully crafted image was a darkness that no one saw coming. Within a matter of hours, his entire family would vanish, and the world would be left asking one question: how could a man who seemed to have it all destroy it all? This is the story of how a perfect picture turned out to be a monstrous lie. It was August 13th, 2018, a typical summer day. Shanann Watts, pregnant with her third child and her two young daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, disappeared from their home in Frederick, Colorado. The first person to raise the alarm was a friend, but it was Chris himself who made the official call to the police. On the surface, he was the concerned husband, calm, cooperative. He spoke to the officers as if he had absolutely nothing to hide. But as the police bodycam footage rolled, a different picture began to emerge. We see a man who talks, but doesn't seem to feel. There's no panic in his voice, no real anger, no gut-wrenching fear you'd expect from a man whose entire family is missing. His emotions are flat, almost robotic, and deeply controlled. This is the first major red flag that psychologists and body language experts would later point to. Because when someone is genuinely distraught, their body betrays them. Their heart rate spikes, their breathing changes, their mind races. Chris showed none of that. He tells the police a story. He claims he and Shanann had an emotional conversation early that morning, that she had decided to take the kids to a friend's house to give them both some space. He painted a picture of a marital disagreement, nothing more. But the evidence in the house told a completely different story. Shanann's phone was still there. So was her purse, her wallet, and the wedding ring she never took off. Her car, with the children's car seats still inside, was in the garage. For a devoted mother like Shanann, leaving without these essentials, especially her children's medication, was completely out of character. It was unthinkable. The story just didn't add up. As the hours turned into days, the community rallied together. Friends and neighbors organized search parties, holding on to hope. And then, Chris Watts agreed to do a television interview, a public plea for his family's safe return. Standing on his front porch in front of news cameras, he looked into the lens and begged for them to come home. "Shanann, Bella, Celeste," he said, "if you're out there, just come back." But again, experts watching this interview saw something deeply disturbing. His words didn't match his body language. There were moments where a flicker of a smile crossed his face. His gestures seemed rehearsed, not spontaneous. He spoke about his family in the past tense. Instead of expressing raw, desperate grief, he appeared almost detached, as if he were an actor playing a part. This phenomenon is known as incongruent emotion. It's when what you say and what you truly feel are in direct conflict. His body was leaking the truth, even as his words tried to conceal it. The pressure on Chris began to mount. The police were digging deeper, and they soon uncovered the secret he was so desperately trying to hide. Chris was living a double life. While he was playing the role of the perfect family man, he was also having an affair with a coworker. This wasn't just a fling, it was a serious relationship. He was telling this other woman that he was separating from his wife, that he was ready to start a new life with her. He was sending her love letters and planning a future that didn't include Shanann, Bella, or Celeste. To Chris, his family had transformed in his mind. They were no longer the center of his world, the source of his joy. Instead, they had become an obstacle, a barrier standing between him and the new, exciting life he craved. From a psychological perspective, Chris was trapped in a corner of his own making. He desperately wanted out of his marriage, but he couldn't face the consequences of a divorce. He was worried about financial ruin, losing his house, and the public shame of admitting his failures as a husband and father. He had built this image of the perfect family, and he couldn't bear to watch it crumble. And this is where a terrifying psychological process called moral rationalization can begin. In his mind, the problem wasn't his affair or his lies. The problem was his family. They are in my way, the thought process goes. This is the only solution. I have no choice. He began to dehumanize the very people he had promised to love and protect, seeing them not as his wife and children, but as objects to be removed. Back in the interrogation room, The detectives skillfully applied pressure. They didn't accuse him directly at first. Instead, they appealed to his ego, telling him they knew he was a good guy who had been pushed into a corner. They gave him a way to start talking. Finally, after hours of denial, Chris Watts broke. His first confession was another lie, a twisted attempt to shift the blame. He claimed that he had told Shanann he wanted a separation, and that in a fit of rage, she had harmed their children. He then claimed that he, in his own rage, had killed Shanann in retaliation. It's a common tactic used by perpetrators. Blame the victim. Make them responsible for their own demise. But the investigators didn't buy it. It was another performance, another desperate attempt to control the narrative. They kept pushing. They confronted him with the evidence, with the inconsistencies in his story, and with the sheer unlikelihood of his claims. And then, finally, the full, horrifying truth came out. There was no fight. There was no rage-fueled retaliation. It was cold, calculated, and methodical. He admitted that he had murdered his pregnant wife, Shanann, in their bed. And then, after putting her body in his truck, he drove his two little girls, Bella and Celeste, to a remote oil field where he worked. He smothered them, one by one. He disposed of their small bodies in oil tanks and buried his wife in a shallow grave nearby. It wasn't an act of passion. It wasn't an explosion of anger. It was the chillingly calm execution of a plan designed to erase his family so he could be free. The Chris Watts case serves as a terrifying reminder that evil can wear a friendly face. It shows how the curated perfection we see on social media can be a mask for unspeakable darkness. The perfect family man was, in reality, a monster hiding in plain sight. His story is not just a true crime tragedy. It's a chilling psychological study of deceit, narcissism, and the complete collapse of a moral compass. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones we don't know at all. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into complex cases. And remember to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video.